Renting an apartment is never as easy as booking a hotel, right? But there are some companies out there looking to bridge that gap. Today I spoke to Vishal Makhijani, who is the president and COO of Zumper, a company looking to bring the whole renting experience from finding a flat to moving in onto one platform, and trying to do innovative things like making sure that landlords get a whole year's worth of rent guaranteed at the same time. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. So hi Vishal, thanks for joining us. Could you start off by telling me a little bit about what it is that Zumper does?
Great to chat with you today, Edmund. Zumper is an online rental marketplace. Our mission is to make renting an apartment as easy as booking a hotel. We're the third largest rental platform here in the United States and Canada, and we're the fastest growing.
Okay, and how is it that you go about that problem?
We've grounded our approach to building our marketplace in great user experience or great customer experience. From the very beginning of the company's focused on selection and accuracy of all of its listings, and that's led to just a very strong growth period over the last years.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to talk to you guys in particular was your InstaRent product, which is something that I was very impressed by. Could you walk me through how that works?
Sure. InstaRent is essentially trying to build an end-to-end experience that has happened actually in very many other categories on the internet, where we're able to provide a lot more benefit to the customer by providing the opportunity to have the entire experience on Zumper. I'll give you an example. We've built through our launching of InstaRent an entire e-commerce experience for renting your apartment. Say, for example, if you're a small property owner, particularly in the current period, you're able to transact every single part of the process from identifying a renter who may be interested in your unit, to screening that renter, to fielding an application, to signing a lease and ultimately collecting rent payment, all digitally. And we enable that through a set of tools we've built over the last couple of years.
Okay, so for maybe our international viewers, could you maybe identify a few barriers or a few friction points that renters in the US encounter when they're trying to rent an apartment, and just how it is that Zumper has managed to get around some of those?
For whatever reasons, in the United States, not a lot has changed from the initial porting of classifieds to the internet. In fact, most folks who are looking for their next place to live have to grapple with, doing a search, which is obviously an advancement over the era of just buying the paper at the corner. But outside of that, it's not much different. You'll send a message, and then you typically may or may not get a response from the property owner. And so we've set a set of marketplace rules on our platform that both encourage the right behavior so that it all happens, that you can track it. And as I mentioned, we do things like, if you're going to be an InstaRent property owner, the listing has a certain amount of information, rich media, 3D tours, and those kinds of things, all enabling you to make a far more informed decision digitally and remotely before you still may obviously go visit. Most folks still do the place they're going to live, but many are now actually doing it all digitally as well.
Okay, so you mentioned there that a lot of people still go and visit. Are there any other tools that, I suppose, with 2020 being the year that it has been so far, I imagine there are some other tools that you have been using to promote listings. Would that be right?
Well, we focus on, when we put a listing up, and a property owner puts a listing up on our platform, we try to envision what are all the questions a renter would want to have answered before they might make a decision on this property. And that's what we endeavor to do. It's actually in some ways as basic as that, Edmund. And that's what we encourage through our listing creation process. Those are kind of the rules of InstaRent too. Typically you see far better response rates between the parties. One of the great frustrations for both property owners and for prospective renters is that folks don't always answer when they make an inquiry, right? So one is try to make the listing as comprehensive and as trustworthy as possible. And then secondarily, obviously encourage a level of communication that makes both parties feel good.
Okay, so just lastly on InstaRent, if I'm a user, could you walk me through exactly how the process would work from, let's say, finding your page on Google or on social media to moving in?
Yeah, the vast majority of our users come either direct to Zumper or through our native apps or through search, as you mentioned too. Um, we're not trying to put any additional load or burden on the renter at all. In fact, we want you to kind of have it be as easy as possible. And so it's a search experience. As I mentioned, the listings, we do our best to make them as rich as possible, both with breadth of information and the trustworthiness of that information too. In-rent listings are all verified as to their details and the photography and 3D video. And in fact, we often provide that for the property owner in certain instances. And so the renter can trust that what they're reviewing when they execute their search based on the criteria they have for the place or type of place they'd like to live, that they're getting great information back. So that's where it all starts. And then like in any other real estate search experience, they might want to reserve the unit. In fact, InstaRent allows a renter, if they're excited about a unit, to actually reserve that unit and take it off the market for 24 hours, should they be so inclined. If not, if they just want to apply, they can do that as well. And once again, we're trying to make the listing as comprehensive as possible so that individual can make that decision in an as informed way as possible as well.
Okay, so as I understand it, as a user, I can turn up and I can essentially book a place to live online, which is, I mean, for me, fantastic. What has the uptake been like, both on the customer or the user side and on the supply side, the landlord?
Yeah, so we just got going over the last couple of months. We launched it initially in just a couple of cities at first, and now we're up to 10 cities across the United States. We're still rolling this out in a manner so that we can do it and have it be a great experience in each of them. We also have offered just recently to property owners something called the Zumper Renter Guarantee, which essentially assures the property owner of 12 months of rent. And so it's early days for these products, and we're trying to get them trying to get the experiences really dialed in, which we feel good about now. And now it's about getting the word out. But we have seen really nice uptake across those 10 cities.
I can imagine, certainly. As you may be able to hear in the background, there are problems with renting and living in rented apartments. My neighbors have been building their new kitchen for the last 10 minutes. Do you think that the rental market, as opposed to the sale market, provides, let's say, more of a scope to innovate? Because there are maybe less, the transactions are not such a huge investment for people on both sides, maybe?
I think both areas do have opportunity for innovation. On a pure numbers basis, a couple of things are kind of, in some ways, I guess, advantaging innovation in renting. First of all, people rent more frequently than they buy. In the United States, you typically, if you're a homeowner, you'll buy 2.5 homes over the course of your home buying life, whereas you move every 2.5 years here in the United States. We have relatively mobile citizenship, right? So there's just more frequency. The problems are a little bit different, but some are the same as well, right? Like, the push towards an end-to-end experience just gives a platform like us more opportunity to provide value. For example, for better, for worse, finding a home isn't always a very equitable experience for different people, right? And having an environment where we can, make sure that folks are representing their candidacy as fairly as possible. It's something, for example, you can do. So by using screening tools like we do, we work with a really well-respected company here called TransUnion that helps a renter demonstrate that they're a good candidate for this unit, typically via credit score and some other things, right? And so we try to make sure we have as trustworthy environment as possible. But I think both environments have opportunity for innovation. We're obviously very squarely focused on just the rental market.
Okay. And talking about how you can maybe scale this idea, do you think there's more scope to scale within the United States? What are let's say, the criteria for moving to a different city that you might have? Is it uniformity of housing stock, or is there something else?
It's a great question. Prior in my career, I've always been in companies that were more global in nature. For whatever reason, real estate markets tend to be more national. Regardless of that, we do have strength in Canada too. So we're in some ways not quite fully North American provider. The United States is a massive market, though, as you might imagine, right? And so we have plenty of opportunity. But even here in the United States, cities have different experiences from city to city. A rental decision in San Francisco is a little bit different than one, say, in Atlanta, right? And so just because of the things you just mentioned as examples, uniformity of housing stock, where renters choose to search. in different cities for whatever reason. You know, we have tons of strength in places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago, and a couple of other companies might have strength in other places. So there is a little bit of localness to it as well. But we're blessed that, you know, we just have such a great big opportunity here in the United States.
Do you think, obviously you have, let's say, expanded internationally as you're working in Canada. Obviously this is a problem not just affecting North America. Is there scope for expanding internationally for you guys? Have you seen other people that you have looked at and been impressed with at all?
Yeah, it's a great question. As I mentioned, you know, because of my prior experience, I've had conversations with entrepreneurs in rental real estate now across several different countries. And there seems to be strength, you know, in specific European countries, for example. Certain companies do very, very well providing rental real estate search services. In Asia too, I've talked to a few entrepreneurs in India and in China as well. There are some uniqueness, there is some uniqueness around consumer behavior and on property ownership too, in terms of, i.e., who owns the property. Here in the United States, for example, around 20% of the available supplier inventory is controlled by the multifamily category. These are large companies backed with billions of dollars, many oftentimes private equity investors, and they own a certain style of real estate, all the way down to the mom and pop landlord. You know, here in the United States, real estate as an investment vehicle is probably the most common way to generate any kind of family wealth of any consequence. In fact, Instrument is initially targeted very much at that property owner. We're very much trying to help the kind of regular citizen kind of create this nest egg for themselves. And, you know, that, for example, that's why we came up with the Instant Renter Guarantee. Because if you think about, you know, choosing your next renter, you obviously want to make sure that the most important thing that you're going to have in two things, right? That your property is taken care of appropriately, and that you're paid your rent appropriately when you expect it. And so we're trying to remove some of the risk and anxiety out of that experience. But, you know, we haven't made any plans about international expansion outside of where we are today, just because we have our hands full, and we think the opportunity is really big here in the United States.
Well, thanks for that. Last question from me, I guess double question. I've been asking everyone, how has 2020 been for you guys, and how do you think the future will unfold, both for your company Zumper and, let's say, the rental market in general?
Yeah, 2020 has been hard for a lot of people. It affected our business and our market as well. However, we're fortunate that the strength of what we provide in many ways has been accelerated. That environment has been accelerated here in the United States and for Zumper. I mean, if you think about pursuing the mission of making renting an apartment as easy as booking a hotel, and kind of digitizing an experience that can sometimes be manual and rely on in-person meeting, you know, in a pandemic era, making all of those opportunities available digitally has been an accelerant for us. So in many ways, we've just been heads down, really working hard to help our customers navigate this area. There has been some impact to the business. We operate in some urban markets that have been very hardly hit. But even there, opportunity lies as well for folks like us, because people are moving. And so the pace of moving has increased. You know, sometimes, unfortunately, it's not under the best of circumstances for individuals. We're just trying to make that anxiety-inducing decision as easy as possible for both renters as well as property owners.
Okay. And how do you see the market evolving generally in 2021, let's say? Do you think that booking a place to live online with a few clicks is going to be the norm?
I think, you know, because it's a really important decision for people. So even though it happens more often, you know, as we were discussing earlier, versus buying a home more frequently, the rental decision happens more frequently. It's still a big decision for people, right? So I think it doesn't change overnight, but there's clear preference for being able to do as much of the investigation as you can digitally. I think consumers have come to expect this, frankly. In many ways, we feel like we're fulfilling a need that's been there for a while now, which is, how do you make at least the search, discovery, and initial selection process really easy and make that all available digitally? We expect that to accelerate over the coming year or so, because you know, this pandemic isn't going away right away. And you know, as people encounter this decision, whenever that happens for them, we believe providing this experience that's as easy as booking a hotel room, that's why our mission is what it is going to really benefit the customer. And we hopefully, obviously, want to take advantage of that.
Okay, well, thanks very much for talking to us, Vishal. Really appreciate it. Certainly myself, as a millennial who doesn't like doing paperwork and likes doing everything online, I really like your product. I really like what you're doing, and wish you the best of luck for the future.
I appreciate it. It's been nice to chat.